Controversy in the halls of West Charlotte High School. This is a story that broke right here in the Charlotte community in our area, where there was some controversy around a display that was set up by some teachers and students for Black History Month. And Baba Makaru, this is your alma mater, West Charlotte High School. And I know you have personally done research on what happened here. So tell us what happened at West Charlotte with the display for Black History Month.
Sante Sana, Brother Amos. Yeah, some West Charlotte teachers, a group of West Charlotte teachers, West Charlotte Senior High School teachers, found some very creative and informative ways for their students to visualize what they were being taught during Black History Month. The teachers produced numerous displays that reflected various periods of African American history. One display that focused on the era of American apartheid, which I'm identifying as between 1877 and 1965, was deemed inappropriate by Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. To give students a visual image of one aspect of American apartheid, a West Charlotte teacher decorated two school doors that were designated as the colored entrance and the white entrance to a 1930s Sears Department Store. So, this is how the image was placed in the hallway of the school. As with anything regarding African American history, reactions spread quickly across social media on February 14th. Some commentators found the display to be offensive, distasteful, too far, and even psychologically damaging to African American students, saying just because it's given a moment of reality does not make it okay for anyone to have to go through anything similar to our ancestors. It's out of line. Now, this is a person that's obviously just not connected to the total history of African people in the United States, because our young people are experiencing a lot of traumatic things in their lives, right now, many of which are directly related to the issue of race and white supremacy. Another post said the teacher is being accused of terrorizing children with offensive and traumatic decorations. Other comments were more grounded in the historical reality of the display. One user said, "I think it's great. This is what people actually live through. It shows us how far we've come." Additional historically conscious commentators said, "This brought the past front and center in a way many of us today have never experienced firsthand. This was the reality not too long ago. That's the lesson right there." I think these kind of things make history more real, so conversations can be had and a perspective gain. I think it's great. Archive CLT owner Sharice Terry told WCNC, "What I see is somebody who has done a great job in recreating and illustrating what the times have been for Black people. The project is opening the door to powerful conversations about race." But looking at it in its totality, I don't think you can tell the Black story in America and not talk about segregation. Okay, so those were some of the comments that CMS apparently responded to. CMS responded with a Ron DeSantis type of censorship. The Charlotte Observer reported, in response to online complaints, the displays were removed hours after being put up on February 14th. Obviously, the positive comments didn't matter to CMS. So the display was only up for a few hours. I mean, this really shows how people react, to social media without delving into any kind of context, offering any kind of explanations, discussions, or anything. They just respond to something that someone raised some issues about. Most likely, it was a lot of people on social media who don't give a flying flip what Black students are being taught, and certainly don't want them being taught anything that actually delivers the historical truth of the American empire. And so they responded to that, those outbursts, by certain people, and maybe some assimilationists who were offended, by the display. The official CMS statement said the school district is required to provide social studies and history lessons to all of our students in an age-appropriate manner. Teachers at West Charlotte High School decorated doors that displayed inappropriate content. The activity is not aligned to state standards or with CMS curriculum and approved lesson plans. Moving forward, once school leadership was made aware of the doors, the displays were immediately removed. This happened over the course of a few hours on one school day, February 14th, 2024. So the display was only up for a few hours before the district responded to this social media outrage and responded with Ron DeSantis type of censorship. Moving forward, the district's teachers will be retrained in the specific social studies curriculum practices that can be utilized in lesson plans to teach students. So, upon, seeing how this played out in the media for a couple of days, I decided to contact the CMS Media Relations Department, seeking further clarification. If the West Charlotte Black History display was inappropriate, what were some examples from American apartheid CMS would consider to be appropriate? This was the question I put to the person I talked to in CMS Media Relations, and that person responded that CMS had no further comments. I mean, it's very simple. If that display from that historical period, a display which is historically accurate, which reflects the historical reality that people like me live through, then what was appropriate? They wouldn't respond. My concern was driven by the fact that I grew up during American apartheid and I've taught African American history. The West Charlotte display was an absolute accurate reflection of the history I lived through my teenage years. It's certainly a history that needs to be taught to secondary school students, and images based on historical realities enhance that process. This history keeps repeating in various forms. This is why it's so important to teach the history, because the history keeps repeating. We went from American apartheid to the reforms of Reconstruction. We went from chattel slavery to the reforms of Reconstruction, to American apartheid, to the reforms of civil rights, to the current conditions, which include the new Jim Crow and the other white backlash, white redemption campaign that we're seeing in this country right now. And I made a note. Now, I'm not talking about showing an image of the 1911 lynching of Laura Nelson and her 14-year-old son, LD, hanging from a bridge in Oklahoma. Laura Nelson, who was pregnant, was killed. She was supposedly raped and hung from a bridge. Her 14-year-old son was castrated and hung from a bridge. And they were left hanging from the bridge. All of the white people in the town were told to come out the next morning and stand on the bridge so that they could take a picture of it and make a postcard of it. Now, I could understand that a picture like that without context, even though it's actual history, someone could argue that, okay, maybe, we shouldn't be showing that. But, nevertheless, it is the historical reality our people faced, during the era of American apartheid, and, continues even to this day in various forms. Furthermore, U.S. history high school textbooks, such as the one my grandson used, show similar images from the American apartheid era. Does CMS object to images that are in U.S. history books? Now, this is not a U.S. history book, but it's a book that I taught from. It's the African American Odyssey, and this shows a picture of George McLaurin sitting outside of a classroom. He was trying to get his. He had a master's in education. He was attempting to get his PhD at the University of Oklahoma. He had to sue the school, first of all, just to be able to get in. And then when he got in, they said he couldn't sit in the same classroom with white students. So they gave him a chair to sit in the hallway outside. So the history textbooks, just like I think the one you previously showed about maybe the white waiting room or colored waiting room. These things are in history books. So what's the problem? While CMS was objecting to the segregated entrances display, they apparently had no objection to a display titled "From Change to Change," which had an image of two black hands in chains. So black hands in chains during chattel slavery was apparently appropriate. Now, to me, this is historically accurate. I don't see whereas there should have been a problem with this. I don't see whereas, but where people are complaining about something being a traumatic experience or whatever. I mean, this was okay, and I think it's okay. I don't see anything wrong with this particular display because our people experienced chattel slavery for 246 years. Of course, we were in chains, and of course, as a result of struggle, we broke free. All right, forcing this country, the warring factions in this country, into a civil war. Okay, so the question is what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. CMS said moving forward, the district's teachers will be retrained in the specific social studies curriculum practices. It seems to me that the officials at CMS who deemed the West Charlotte historical display inappropriate are the ones who need to be re-educated. I mean, if you sit down and made this decision, then you are clearly lacking education of the period of American apartheid. Now, I'd be willing to come down there and do a workshop for CMS to educate them on this subject because clearly their education is lacking. So, it's been a big issue here around the city. I wrote an article about it in this week's issue of the County News. And I wanted to spread it to the national and international audience that we have here at African Liberation Media. You have any comments, Brother Amos?
Well, I analyzed this, and thank you for bringing this topic to the show. I analyzed this in a couple of ways. Number one, this is one of the problems that I have with the social media. If this display were put up in 1994 instead of 2024, nobody else around the country would have even known about it. It would have been a beneficial display for the students at the high school of West Charlotte who would have gained some education out of it, and it would have made them better students for it. But because of social media, you get all of these different opinions and statements, some of them even coming from bots, that puts pressure on CMS to do a knee-jerk type of reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the situations where I say, social media is a negative, because if this was put up on February 14th and it was taken down within hours of it being put up on the same day, it's only because it was on social media.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, when we're talking about the term Black History Month, this is a part of Black history. You can't hide and choose what part of your history to tell or determine what part of your history is appropriate or inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
If a teacher wanted to tell the story of Emmett Till,
mm-hmm.
you can't historically accurately tell the story of Emmett Till without showing his mutilated body that his mother wanted to be on display.
That's right.
For the simple fact, she wanted the world to see what happened to her son.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just another version of censorship. And it really boils down to, you mentioned the Ron DeSantis reaction. What I feel is that Europeans have a problem with Black people learning history that will do either two things: make them angry and want revenge, or make them motivated to liberate and empower themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Those two aspects of the history are the histories that they don't want taught. So if you teach Now Valley history in the school system, there'll be controversy around people saying that the Africans in the Now Valley weren't black. If you teach the history of Nat Turner in the school system, there'll be controversy around saying that we shouldn't be teaching about someone who went out and killed innocent women and children.
Mm-hmm.
If you put up a display like this, because this will hit a black student and make them think, well, damn, I didn't realize that my ancestors were forced to walk through a door, especially if you put up the display and you force the students to walk through the door that says colored and let the white students walk through the white. Then you're going to feel how your ancestors felt. What's that? What is that going to do? It's going to make you mad. It's going to make you start to think about your current conditions today. Have things really changed?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what it boils down to. It boils down to they want to teach information and history that pacifies black people, which is why they are okay with this message.
Mm-hmm.
From change to change. This is non-threatening. This is, non-violent. It's feel good about where you are today based off where you used to be. This is basically what this is saying.
Yeah.
So
yeah, very, very definitely, brother. Appreciate those comments. Right on point. Dr. John Henry Clark taught us that all history is a current event. And of course, our esteemed ancestor, Dr. Clark, in addition to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and Elder Neely Fuller, have taught us how white supremacy operates in terms of its phases: establishment, maintenance, expansion, and refinement. And then these phases become cycles that repeat, as I mentioned. Chattel slavery, American apartheid, New Jim Crow, or whatever you want to call this particular historical, epoch that we are in at this moment. So it's important for people to understand the history in order to understand the current conditions that we're dealing with. And so to me, that was the value, because, as you said, someone may be inspired, like I was, to read beyond what was in the textbooks, read beyond what I was being taught, because we were even being taught far less then than there was no book, there in our schools, like this book, that I used, right? There was nothing like that. So but the images that I saw that were coming across the Empire media, the 15 minutes of local news and 15 minutes of national news, inspired me. Plus the few things that we were able to read, in school, like, Native Son and Man-Child in the Promised Land, inspired me to go out and find other books to read, like Kwame Ture and Dr. Charles V. Hamilton, esteemed ancestor who recently transitioned to the spiritual world, wrote the book Black Power, The Politics of Liberation, 1968. I was inspired. I wanted to know more. Dr. Howard Zinn, The New Abolitionist, the history of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I wanted to know more. Autobiography of Malcolm X. Malcolm X Speaks. So that's what they are afraid of. They are afraid of reproducing. They are afraid. I don't think they're going to be able to stop it, but they are afraid of reproducing young people, like the Kwame Tures and Assata Shakurs and Fred Hampton and Huey Newton and Bunchy Carter and Kathleen Cleaver, Fannie Lou Hamer. They're afraid that they're going to these young people, they're going to be reproduced. And with the empire teetering, it's something that they're desperate to keep under control. And that's why this knee-jerk censorship by CMS, which is led by a Black woman, is shameful. Absolutely disgraceful. And so CMS, if you're listening, I'll come down there and do a workshop for you to give you some education that you sorely need. Thank you, brother.